Okay, today we're going to look at Affinity Photo for iPad, how you can bring your images in that you've shot on your camera out in the field, perhaps loaded them into your photos or transferred them from your memory card over to your Photos app, export them into Affinity and give them an edit wherever you might be. I'm going to start off just by opening Affinity up. This is the welcome screen where you can access some tutorials or even some sample images to try things out on. I'm going to come up to the plus icon, and there's lots of different ways that we can get a new document. We can import from cloud sources, we can import from photos, etc. So lots of different options. I'm just going to import from photos, come to my recent, and I'm going to choose a blue wooden gate that I shot, just to take a bit of practice with cropping, straightening, applying some adjustments, etc. Just so sort of day-to-day things you might do on your photographs. Now down the left-hand side we have our toolbar, and fairly straightforward, our hand tool for moving around our image, our selection move tool where we can move what's on the actual layer, and underneath that we've got things like a color picker, crop, paintbrush, gradient tool, fill tool, paintbrush tool. Our erase, dodge and burn tools are under there, and where there's a little arrow in the corner of the icon means that you can select the variances of the tool, so you burn, dodge, sponge, smudge, sharpen, etc. We've got our clone stamp tool, clone brush tool, patch tool in painting, history brush tool, pen tool, marquee tool, and our text tool. So quite a lot of options there for making adjustments or making enhancements to our images, a lot of tools available. And where Affinity Photo differs from other iPad apps is that it's pretty much 90-95% of the desktop software is in the app. So you're not getting a watered down version, you're probably getting exactly the same tools that as photographers we would use on all of our images. On the right hand side we have our layers palette, we have our color wheel, brush tools, adjustments, filters, layer effects, text tool. We have our metadata tool which shows us our histogram and our EXIF data. So this picture was actually taken with an iPhone X, and you can see the data on which I took it, its dimensions, the exposure in terms of shutter speed, aperture, ISO, focal length, etc. So it's a nice way as well that if you're looking to provide some information about a photograph as well, the metadata is embedded in there as well. So we are going to come up to the personas. Now Affinity has different personas along the top left of the screen, and we are currently in the photo persona. We have a selection persona which has all our selection tools. If we want to make selections, then go back and make different adjustments to those selections. We have our liquify tool, develop persona, tone mapping persona, which I'll come to later on, and our export persona. But I'm just going to come to our develop persona, and this will look quite familiar because it's pretty much similar to Lightroom's tools in that you have sliders for things like exposures, black points, brightness of the image. We can enhance the contrast, adjust the clarity of our image, bring out that texture a little bit, adjust the saturation and vibrance. We can also adjust our color temperature. Bear in mind that the blue switches need to be on for each of those. So if I click on the shadows highlights, switch that on, I can then just apply a bit of protection there. And then I click develop. It would apply those settings to my image and put me back into the develop persona, where I can then add further adjustments. So if I come down to my adjustments, and I'm going to click on curves, and I get this menu bar at the bottom of the image that allows me access to the way the curves tool adjustments work. So at the moment I've got my master channel selected. I can go in there and tweak individual channels if I wanted to adjust the overall color. If I click on the spline icon, I can just work on the overall tonal range of the image. And I'm just using the Apple Pencil just to click on various points. You can use your finger as well. So if I come up to my layers and if I click on the tick button there, I can see what effect I've made. Like the other editing softwares, the white square there acts as a mask. So I can go in and I can mask off if I don't think the adjustment works on certain areas. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my crop tool. I'm going to click original aspect and there's a little white arrow next to it and I'm going to click straighten. And what I'm going to do is I've clicked straighten, I'm just going to take my pen and I'm just going to draw a straight line to straighten up the horizontals of this. Now you see that when it straightens it, it doesn't auto crop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch and zoom just so I can see my whole image, and I'm going to bring that crop grid in from the sides and the top and bottom slightly, just to hide the edges that have been cropped out, because they would just show up as empty pixels. And click apply, and I've now got something that's a bit more aesthetically pleasing. When I come to, for example, my colour balance, I can work on my range of my midtones or my highlights, and you'll see that I've got letters here for these are cyan and reds, so depending on which way I go, I'm putting more red in, I'm putting more cyan in if I go to the other side. So I can just colour adjust magenta and green, magenta, blue, yellow. I'm going to warm this up a little bit, I'm going to put a little bit more yellow in. And on the highlights, I'm just going to apply a little bit more red just to get that colour tone looking a bit more pleasing. Again, if I'm ever unsure whether an adjustment is working or not, I just bring up my layers tab, and I click on, yeah, I'm liking when that's gone. I should switch that back on. Okay, so I'm on my background there. Any other adjustments that I feel like applying at the moment? Don't think there's anything else. Some of these you'll use quite often, some of these you won't use, but it's always worth at some point going in and just having a little play with each of them. Just add a bit more overall warmth to that. So far quite happy with the various adjustments here. Now if I wanted to, say, burn in some of the edges, darken down the edges in a vignette style, but I wanted to do it with a brush, I can do that quite easily with a brush or a gradient tool. I will select and add a new pixel layer, which has added a new empty layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fill tool, and if I click on fill context here, type solid, linear, elliptical, radial, conical. These are different ways in which the gradient works. So if I pull the pencil around, I'm drawing out where this gradient works. Now obviously we can't see what's happening. I'm going to change this to dark so that you can see a bit more. I can't see how this has been applied, it's just applying white and black paint over the image. So if I bring up my layers tab, click on pixel and click on the three dots above it, I can do different things like add a layer blend. I'm going to put this one to overlay, and I'm just going to adjust to give a sort of dodging and burning effect. I actually want to reverse this. And you can see here that I'm darkening and lightening different areas, and that's using a gradient fill to maybe to add an effect of light direction, etc. Okay. So there we have different ways of applying our image. applying our light of our image. So I'll just darken down the bottom, lighten up the top a little bit. And we could add noise, we can add various effects. We've got auto contrast, auto color, auto layers. We can add blur, more clarity. We can defringe if we're getting sort of fringing noise from high ISO. We can have our depth of field blur. There's lots of different things here that we can use. Add dust and scratches to add a bit of texture. We can add a fill blur, etc. So what I'm looking for is the unsharp mask. So that I can just add a bit of sharpening to it. And if I press on the split button, I can see my before and after. And I'm just going to go a bit crazy with that, just so we can see, and then apply. And so that's it. I mean, if I want to take out, heal up some of these discrepancies, come down to my clone brush tool. I'm going to use the in-painting brush tool. Now you have to make sure the right layer is selected, so I'm on my background layer because this is where I want to work on this. And I've just clicked on the three buttons, three dots over to the left hand side, and I've duplicated the layer. So that I can go in here and work on this. So I'm just now painting with my Apple Pencil, and it is removing certain blemishes. Got to be careful how you pinch and zoom works as well, but I can just take out little bits that are distracting. The circle's distracting. It's doing a fantastic job of just filling this in. Now the one thing I did wrong, which you don't want to do, is I've already sharpened the image. I want to do things like my in-painting, cloning and healing before I sharpen, because otherwise I'm just mixing up a lot of already heightened pixels around. So there's lots of things there that we can do, very similar to our Photoshop, and like I say, very, very much the same as what our Affinity desktop app does as well. So that's just a quick introduction. We'll do more videos on showing you how to do various techniques on both the software, on the computer, or on the iPad.